Okay, that should do it. Perfect. Well, a little late, but better late than never. Thank you all for your patience. This is the first bi-weekly town hall of November 3rd, 2023. We've got one or two new faces, and thank you all so much for joining this morning or this afternoon, depending on where in the world you are. We have a number of items that we can run through. I'm very happy to say that we've got quite a few posts from the hub that we can. I would like to at least spend a little bit more time than usual exploring. So without much further ado, let me share the screen and we will take a look at those. Okay. So first off, we've got we've got a post from about 5 days ago from RE Corpus with a question about ways to find orders to fulfill other than e-NABLE Web Central. I know this is something that has been coming up here and there in discussions on the town hall. Obviously, Jeremy, this is something that you've been aware of as part of our interest in seeking new matching possibilities on the site. But his question is, my chapter of e-NABLE has tons of materials and printing space to build Phoenix V3s, but are finding it difficult to find order to fulfill due to lack of requests on Web Central. What else can be done to get orders? Does anyone here need hands being made in bulk? We can completely cover the cost. Obviously, this is very dear to my heart. This issue of having many more people interested in helping than we have currently connected to find recipients. But I just wanted to zero in on this for a moment. Obviously, this is something that I've been exploring for the past year or so. I wanted to raise the idea of the repository or some kind of, if not a centralized physical location where these things can be kept and maintained, but establishing some kind of library of already built or already printed hands, and whether or not something like that could be feasible on the site.
Well, this is something as you know, Adam, we've struggled with quite a bit in the past, and there's multiple levels to this challenge. One is that if we create a repository, the bigger problem seems to be not in the collecting of the devices, but making good use of them after they get collected. We've
Sure.
never been effective at having somebody that doesn't just take them in and let them pile up. Somebody needs to actually inventory them, have asset tracking so that we know exactly what sizes and what types and colors and materials, whatever, exactly what's on hand, maybe even do some kind of a serial numbering system for tracking purposes. And then most importantly, have some kind of a system of actually getting those out to the people that could use them. And we've just never figured that last piece of that chain out. And so what ended up happening is that they would just collect somewhere and nobody really would know what was there. They're just sitting in a room on shelves somewhere, piling up, and they never really went anywhere. Nobody gets any feedback about where their devices went. And so that all kind of broke down. So I think the programs that you were working on, Adam, where you're connecting with specific areas, clinics, groups in areas with heavy need, really is an important part of this, because if you have somebody on our end that's collecting and inspecting and inventorying device and doing the asset tracking properly, and you have partners, elsewhere in areas of need, then you can start to complete that chain and actually move those devices, get details back about which ones were used and where they went and that sort of thing. And then actually get feedback to the original people that made them to say, hey, glad to tell you your device ended up making it to somebody in, Ukraine or Afghanistan or wherever it might be. And obviously they feel great about that. We've just
Yeah.
never gotten that whole chain working.
Yeah, so the issue that I am butting up against is that I think that we have a great network of people who are really interested primarily in the fabrication of devices. I've put out dozens of calls, multiple calls, I'll say, on the hub and in direct messages and in emailing and in phone calls with groups and chapter leaders to try to identify people who might be interested in engaging in more of this kind of logistics work. And I've not found anyone in the community yet who's really interested in that
Yeah,
side of things, which
those
is
roles are
understandable.
hard. Those roles are hard
Yeah.
to fill. And that's something else we've talked about, not to complicate this further, but John and I and others have had discussions in the past that, maybe there are just some roles in the community that it's not realistic to expect to be filled by volunteers. Maybe that's something we need to think about using the e-NABLE fund for and treating it almost as a paid position. Find a person that's qualified, that has some interest, that's willing to do it at a lower than market rate, perhaps, but not for free, and then put it to a vote to the community and actually fund the role of having somebody do that. If that's what's going to free up a roadblock for the community, that's another approach that could be considered.
I think that's a great idea. I think that would be an excellent use of the fund. I think that whatever person is going to be in that position is still going to need more hands than just their own to accomplish something like that. They're going to
It's a
need
big job.
people geographically located in different areas where need could be high. I think that this would be a really great another avenue would be identifying like-minded organizations that would be interested in sort of carrying the burden of distribution, of identifying folks. But again, we need people and time to establish those connections, and it's more than I can do on my own.
Absolutely. And like you said, it might not be, I'm sorry, there's yard care people outside. I don't know if
Oh,
that's
I
making too
can't
much
hear
noise.
anything. You're fine.
It may be even instead of an individual, you said it could be a partner organization. Another possibility is that it's an organization within e-NABLE, in the sense that we've talked about this idea of sort of purpose specific chapters. So maybe there's a chapter that gets formed, but unlike our other chapters, this one gets funding because it's specifically tasked with this role that different people in that chapter do different parts of, between the collection and testing and tracking and outreach to other, areas of need. And, that could be a group that manages that if the right group could be found. But,
Yeah.
we could
So
offer funding.
about a year ago, I started reaching out to various university chapters primarily because I thought that if we're going to find a pool of people who have energy and are and time and are interested in devoting some of that to something like this, would likely be folks in the undergraduate population somewhere. The issue that I very quickly discovered is that there is it's such a revolving door of the members who make up those kinds of groups that it's very difficult to get any kind of like standing commitment from folks. But again, it's it's not a failing on any individual's fault. I just think that I haven't found the right resource pool to execute on some of these kinds of tasks. I think that this would be a really good focal point for me moving forward the next couple of quarters, next year, to try to see if we can help to build up more of an extant group with some defined goals, some defined sort of purpose-driven objectives to fill in these logistics gaps. Maybe I would have a little bit more success on the hub instead of saying like, hey, I need a person who yada, yada, yada. If it were more of a, we are forming this chapter, and I'm sorry, I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
But if it were more of a, this is a chapter that is forming, or maybe this is a series of badges that we're creating that would be in support of this kind of a chapter, to try to actually develop the infrastructure that we need, the mechanism to get more of these hands into the possession of people who can use them. Gosh, Sarah, you always have good insight with this kind of thing. Do you have any thoughts here? I don't mean to put you on the spot in Amsterdam. Is John still on the line, or did
No,
he
looks
drop?
like we lost him. He was in the car,
Okay,
so he might have lost connectivity. Um,
I don't have a specific thought right now, but I can follow up if I have an idea later.
that would
I
be
will say
great.
there's
Thank you, Sarah.
one other angle we haven't touched on. Maybe this is, everything we're talking about is a big challenge. It's going to take time. This is not something that we can fix overnight. We've been working on this for quite a long time already. So I'll just point out, as you well know, Adam, that while we're working on this, we want to be continuing to push these people into the alternative direction of, hey, you don't just need to be making hands. We have these
Yep.
assistive device programs. And, if these, because a lot of these people are just, hey, we've got printers, we want to put them to good use. Great, print these assistive devices, ship them to our partners in the state programs, and they already have the mechanisms to get them into the hands of people that need them.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think it would be I know that we already have a couple of pinned posts on the hub, but it might be nice to have sort of a standing link, somewhere, a banner somewhere off to the side, if that would be doable, from the main, to the right of the main conversation line. To just say, hey, click here if you want to print something for like an actual person today, or something like that. Just because we
We
do
certainly,
have.
it's very easy to do that on the other site, like enabling the future, but on the hub, I think what we'd have to do is just create a small, we'd probably want it to be like a sort of a squarish format, so it could go in the sidebar. And then we'd have to have MASV put that, because there's some coding involved, that there's no
Okay,
built mechanism to just add in a banner, but he could do that for us if we get the image,
gotcha.
the graphic.
In the interim, we can do a pinned post, however.
Yeah, I think we've tried that, but you're right. A pin post with a graphic maybe would get more attention.
Yeah, that's
trying.
good. I will say my eyes always they just glaze over for the top few
That's
posts
right.
until, just
If
because I
it's
know that
text,
they've been
people
there.
tend to ignore it. That's a good point.
That's a good idea.
So anybody have Sarah, is that a skill set that you have, like some kind of graphic design, or anyone else?
No, I do not do graphic design,
Okay.
unfortunately.
That's totally fine. We'll figure something out. I'm a dab hand at Microsoft Paint. I can throw something together.
Okay. Let me know if
Do
I can
some,
help,
like,
Adam.
spray
I
paint
can
thing.
do the basics too.
Okay, great.
Yeah, a picture of one of the assistive devices
Right.
might be good to orient them to the proposition.
That's good.
Do any of those
Okay, cool.
partner sites, Adam, have any? Some of them must have pictures of the devices actually being used by happy people, right?
Oh yeah. Tech Owl in Pennsylvania is kind of in my estimation, it's really the leader in the 3D printed assistive tech space right now.
So maybe
At
we
least
could
in
get,
terms of, like,
maybe we
their
could get permission
resources
to
that are
use one of
available.
their images, and it'd be nice to have, not just showing a device, but actually showing being
Yeah.
used. That would be nice for
Tom and the rest of the team there are pretty, they're pretty amazing at what they
Okay.
do. And talk about forming partnerships with other organizations. They're years ahead in terms of having a real network in place to support those kinds of initiatives. They're awesome. But we've got Scout in Missouri within the Missouri AT program. He is all fired up about this partnership. We've got a couple of folks down in Texas. We've got California, a couple of other places in between. Obviously, Illinois, which kind of started all of this. We've got Courtney and the others over there who I think would love to just have as many people filling in requests as possible. So I think as things currently stand, we probably have enough existing partnerships to really fill the entire community's plate if they wanted to, make a print a week or something like that. So obviously that's just stateside, and we'd like to make things more globally open. But okay, should we move on to post number 2? Let's do it. Making an executive decision here. So we've got an error message. That's fun. Let's try this again.
John, I'm really sorry, but they've rerouted us to Toronto. So we have, yeah, I need you to put us back.
Sounds like John's heading to
It
Toronto.
saves time.
That's a little out of the way. Don't want to miss that Michigan game.
Okay. So we've got a post from one. Well, this isn't the right one. We'll try it again. Oh my gosh. That bar, the bar that's invisible to participants, but blocks the tabs on Zoom just kills me. Here we go. Ethan Spencer. So Ethan is a BSc product design student from Cardiff Metropolitan University in their final year of study. They're researching amputees and phantom limbs. That's what I researched. Want to research something that will help amputees with phantom limb pain or phantom limb sensation by giving them different sensory inputs. Insight would help guide my, gosh, I did a ton of research on this over a decade ago. Great help. Could fill the questionnaire, and I am going to reach out to Ethan myself on this. But any, first of all, folks on the call, are you familiar with the concept of phantom limb sensation and phantom limb pain?
Yep.
Yes.
Awesome. It's a really interesting phenomenon in this target demo. Sarah, thanks for responding there. I'm going to fill in that questionnaire, and I'm going to reach out to Ethan personally, because I might be able to, I don't know if I'll have anything that he doesn't already have, but okay. Any additional thoughts here, folks?
Nope.
Alrighty. Susan Margolis is I don't know who they are, but posted a search for the term Swedish prosthesis on this forum, came up empty. Thought that this article may be of interest regarding a study that began in 2018 of neural control of prostheses. So obviously this is, I see. So this looks to be an some intraosseous implants that have some kind of internal myoelectric controls, which I confess I've never seen before. Oh, I see.
They're actually
Wow.
tying into the muscles.
Yeah, it looks they've got some kind of
Muscle graft. That's
very invasive.
yeah.
But,
you know, I don't know if
You
this
know, that's
not
What's
necessarily
up?
related at all, but another thing I've been seeing recently, I haven't posted anything, so I think I don't know if it's within the realm of our community's interest, but I know some of you like me are kind of tracking some of the AI developments with some interest. And I'm seeing more and more people working with AI and prosthetics as far as, giving improved capabilities and sensing and AI enabled prosthetic devices, which is pretty fascinating. I think there's going to be a lot to track with that. I don't know if there's anything we can do with it yet, but in our bionics group, that might be something to talk about.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I was really into go ahead. What's up, John?
I was just going to say, this technique of attaching to the muscles was something our collaborator from Johns Hopkins, now at Oregon, was a pioneer of. He was a surgeon. Yes, Dr. Chi, who when he did an amputation, he pioneered the technique of preserving those muscles and making them accessible for this kind of thing. This is the next step, is then to attach electrodes directly to the muscles. It's a good topic for a bionic seminar. It's not obviously something that our volunteers are going to get involved in. I wouldn't be surprised if our e-NABLE volunteer who is at Google and is an amputee with a high-tech prosthetic could give us a really interesting presentation about AI and its prospects for
Well,
prosthetics. I'll bet he's up on
that's
that.
why I find it interesting, because it seems to me, just I'm making a lot of assumptions here, but it seems to me like you could do, I mean, these invasive approaches are all about ultimately getting the device to do what you want it to do, right? Being able to, you know, use it like a normal thing. Well, if you can get an AI that sort of understands from your movements or from what it's maybe seeing with sensors or cameras, et cetera, I think you should be able to achieve some of the same things of just sort of naturally being able to get it to respond the way that you want without having to tie into muscles and stuff.
No, it's really interesting.
Certainly way beyond me, but
Well, and you know my stance on you know, simple versus complex when it comes to prosthetics.
of course,
But
which is and should be our forte. Yeah. I mean, this is sort of a very experimental thing.
No, it's fascinating though. Very cool. Okay. Let's hop on to the next one. This is a really good. Thanks, Susan, if you're listening to this. This is really fascinating. All right, Eric Bubar. So this is Eric's Lumio proposal. Is this still open, folks? I think he crossed
No,
that
it can
threshold.
close now, and it passed. Last time I checked,
Right.
it had reached threshold, and now it is ripe. So we should declare victory.
Good. This is a
Nice.
really, for those on the call who aren't familiar, Eric put forward a really interesting idea. And I thought it was interesting because I don't believe he was asking for any funding for this. He was really just asking for permission to get it done. But this would be creating and curating an e-NABLE collection on printables.com, which would allow Eric to share well-documented tested designs within the Prusa community. There'll be a featured collection and a new humanitarian section on the platform, which could potentially attract additional makers from that community. And it may unlock contests and collaboration with Prusa to continue growing our designs. This is just really great. This is excellent.
Yeah.
And Eric, thank you for
It's
committing
a huge
to that.
community, I think.
Yeah.
That's really a good idea. Has anyone had contact with Ian Roy and just in terms of syncing up with what they're doing on NIH?
I have, and with regard to, I had suggested that they coordinate. It's hard to get people to coordinate, as you know. So in the Lumio discussion, it was agreed that Eric should do Prusa. I spoke to Ian about it a few weeks ago when I visited him, and I could talk about that visit later if you like. And I now think that Ian, because he's got so much on his plate, should think about shadowing Eric's curated collection on NIH. And
That makes sense. Yeah, because it
talk to her
sounded
about
like Eric wants to take an approach of being a little bit more selective and focusing on, like Adam was saying, the designs that have been well established, well documented. I really like that idea. I want to be careful about just having a huge jumble of devices where nobody really quite knows what to go to, unless they can at least be separated somehow. So I like focusing on those well-established designs.
I wonder,
and
would it be beneficial to have some kind of visual marker for things that, and this is maybe getting out over my skis a bit because obviously I don't have the expertise that most people on this call do.
Well,
but if we
hop over to devices in your top menu there, Adam, if you don't mind.
Yep.
And go to the all device catalog over on the left, see all devices, left bottom, all the way down. Because we tried to do, go ahead and click on one of these devices, Phoenix Hand. We tried this with the graphic that you'll see at the top there of giving kind of a basic rating in each of those categories. You know, it's a hard thing to do. There are different factors. You know, it talks about difficulty, maturity, the cost, the, you know, grip strength, you know, so, and each device, then we tried to kind of rate in each of those areas, but
well, and sorry, what I was meaning is some kind of visual indicator if something is like reaches a given threshold to be put on this catalog specifically on printables.com or to be shared with NIH. Just saying like this is like one of our kind of
That's what I was kind of
flagship
getting at here. I mean,
designs.
it kind of goes with what we have as the maturity indicator here, because
Gotcha.
that was supposed to be kind of like, okay, is it well documented? Has it been made for multiple individuals with successful outcomes? You know, that's what kind of goes into that maturity indicator. So that could be kind of the kind of thing you're talking about. Maybe we just simplified this down and just
Yeah.
have kind of like, yes, this is a recommended design kind of an
Yeah.
indicator.
Well, I think, Eric is obviously leading the charge here. I'd
Yeah.
say that, maybe that I'm thinking of putting the cart before the horse. Maybe we let him lead the way. And if
Yeah, I
anything
think
that
he's
he
got
needs,
I think he has a good starting point. We know it's going to be the kinetic hand, the Phoenix hand, the
Mhm.
unlimited arm, what's that other one? The Kwawu.
Well,
Mhm.
Yeah, so we kind of know what those initial devices will be. And yeah, I think as long as he's, building off of that sort of in a thoughtful way, I think it'll happen naturally, as long as we have
Great.
somebody that's moderating that.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, well, cool. I'm glad to see that this it was at, I think, 24 yay votes a couple of days ago, but I'm glad to see that this passed. This was a really neat and selfless thing that Eric is recommending, so that's
is.
excellent.
I wonder if he's got any of his students helping with that.
I can only
I
hope.
think he does.
I hope so.
Okay, we've got a longer post from Christoph. So I'm not going to read this in full, but this is something that he's been working on for the past several months. He's got a female recipient who is lacking fingers and has a partial thumb with a residual fifth metacarpal, which is the pinky. Her dream was to be able to play the cello. Came to the conclusion that none of the hand designs would meet her specific residual limb shape. He made a 3D scan, made a band for the forearm and wrist, attached a bow holder to the end. Seemed like it would be enough, but there's a lack of mobility at the wrist, resulting in incorrect movement to the bow. He then changed the concept because she had one finger and a metacarpal bone on the other side of the wrist, decided to base the bow attachment on, the amount of function that she had.
The part that jumps out at me, Adam, is that sentence right there. The mounting is so comfortable for the child that he willingly practices playing the instrument, down a little further. So
Yeah,
sounds like he really had some good success.
that's
Down a
really
little
cool.
more. Yeah, right there.
Child not recording problem. Mounting so comfortable, the child willing practices playing the instrument. Very pleased with the effect. That it was probably the most difficult project, but in finding a solution, that's really cool. So
Yeah,
this is
look at
the
that.
final product. It looks like. Huh? Yeah, I see. So basically,
That's
using
very smart.
the residual as like a rocking mechanism to allow for the
Yeah.
range of motion that they would require. Did we get
And
a
that kind of
comment from
clamshell design offers some nice flexibility. That's nice.
Oh, thanks, John. Yeah, well, I talked to Patrick a little bit at the top of the call, but I apologize. I didn't call him out when the others had joined. This is really cool. I would love for this to be part of our attempt to gather some more storytelling materials, because I think this sounds like a really great example of some lateral problem solving, and this is really
idea.
cool.
And a tutorial on just this process of how do you take a custom 3D scan and use that to model off of would be really powerful.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, John, excellent point. Let's take a quick recess from looking at posts to throw a spotlight on Patrick here. Pat, is it Pat or Patrick? Do you prefer one or the other?
Usually Patrick.
Patrick. Okay, perfect. Yeah. So Patrick, I know that you and I met briefly at the top, but would you like to introduce yourself for the others?
Yeah, so I'm Patrick Geary. I'm from Limerick chapter in Ireland. I was involved more regularly in a few years ago, but I've taken a few years to work on other projects. At the moment, I'm returning to university to do my final year project, and I plan to make some sort of device of some kind that would help the community. I'm not quite sure yet exactly what, but I have previously worked on a few different concepts that I think might be useful. So I'm no stranger to it, but I worked with John quite closely a couple of years ago, so we'd know each other very well. And it was just really interesting listening to what you had to say about. It's interesting to find out where everyone is at the moment, because at the moment in my project I'm doing research, and really I have to dive into what the real needs are at the moment, like what problems there are that can be fixed, and what fixes we can come up with. So it was quite interesting to hear some of the progress that some people are making, and some of the issues, like the reach, like getting a system set up would be quite interesting, where we could get if people really want to make them, but they don't have a certain reach to give them to people nearby. I remember that being a big issue in the past. So maybe that could be something I could help with. And I think the electrode might be a bit beyond the scope of my project, but it's definitely worth putting into the research. Is there anything you could advice you could give me as I'm doing research? Is there any as far as device, are there any things that you've noticed while I've been away that needs attention, I guess?
With specific devices, or
so like, is there that certain people have had, like as far as the device, yeah, like comfort or dexterity,
gotcha.
for example, things like this, because I do plan to make a new device of some kind. So
I mean, I can speak to one, but I'll let the others go first. Go ahead, John.
Well, I think Patrick is asking for ought to be looking for a doable, real contribution, not overambitious, and something that will really fill a gap. To me, the most obvious gap to be filled right now is something based on the kinetic hand, something with the aesthetics of the kinetic hand, but without the need to print flexible hinges, and possibly in gripper hand mode. The gripper hand is a very useful device, but it doesn't have a cosmetic look. And so combining the cosmetics of the kinetic hand with the automatic closing of the gripper, along with some kind of a easy add socket, would be a very nice off-the-shelf solution. And by the way, there is a really nice adjustable socket that has been done with the gripper hand by the Thailand chapter. And so that would be a combo that I would recommend. It would take 3 existing solutions and synthesize them, and would not require that you design a whole damn hand from scratch.
With the flexible hinges of the kinetic hand, is it because there's been difficulty printing them, do you think?
Yes, basically people tend to be very good at PLA, and once they're good at PLA, it's been a problem making those hinges. Jeremy may want to comment on, maybe it's an obsolete problem, but I think that's been the main impediment to people adopting the kinetic hand, which everyone agrees is a beautiful design.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's an obsolete problem, but it certainly has gotten better. Printers, there are a lot more printers that can capably handle the flexibles these days, I think, than in the past, and I think psychologically people are just a little bit more comfortable with it because guidance has gotten better. So I don't think it's as big of a challenge as it used to be, but it can still be a little bit intimidating. I think the kinetic hand is really doing well though, and it'll be interesting to see. I know that Eric is going to kind of put that forward as sort of the primary recommended hand, I believe, even over the Phoenix, which I don't disagree with. It's very well documented, and maybe even just that will help, just in the way that it's being positioned. And we'll have to kind of monitor that and see if people run into problems. But I don't think it's as much of an issue as it used to be.
Okay. Just a side question on that. Is it now possible to print an entire kinetic hand in TPU?
Well, I'd say it's always been possible. I just don't know if you'd necessarily want to. Number one, TPU is a lot more expensive. It's very slow to print. You have to keep the print speed much slower, and you just don't need that much flexibility in some of the parts. It would actually negatively impact, I think, your grip strength and things like that. So yeah, I mean, theoretically you probably could, but you'd have to do most of the parts with near solid infill to make it, not as flexible, and you'd end up using a lot of material and time. And yeah.
Well, let's go back to Patrick's question. My suggestion is a humanoid gripper mechanism with sockets. Do we have any other leads to give Patrick to consider for his project?
I've got something. So we've in recent town halls, Patrick, if you want to look back at our archives on the channel or on the hub, we've had a couple of discussions with an organization called e-NABLE. And I realize I'm kind of banging the same drum here, so apologies for everyone who's heard me say this 100 times, but I'm really interested in exploring how we can provide design to e-NABLE, which is a for-profit company based in Belgium that is creating fabrication labs across the African continent to provide low-cost 3D printed prosthetic devices for folks. They are currently in just a couple of countries there, but already, I believe, the number 3 or 4 prosthetics supplier in Africa. They are only right now producing lower extremity devices for folks. They're interested in partnering with e-NABLE to use e-NABLE designs for the upper extremity. I think that right now the big barrier is the cosmesis, the appearance of the device. In a number of communities and cultures across the continent, having a prosthesis is still not well received by a lot of groups. And so having something that can be covered with something that can be painted to look like the missing limb, to look like it's to have a device that is wrapped with some kind of silicone cover, I think would be a really great project to target, to see if we can get that into the possession of folks with distribution by e-NABLE. That's a partnership that I've been exploring. I've got a couple of additional conversations coming up the next week or two with those guys, but really we have a couple of options there. I don't think that the existing designs on the e-NABLE catalog would lend well to that. So it would be a question of maybe blending some traditional prosthetics components, like a 3-jaw chuck split hook, which is what I had on screen a moment ago. It's kind of a metal hook that allows for a voluntary open with a passive closing mechanism, and seeing if we can blend that with a 3D printed socket that could be well sustained and stable on the residual limb. I think that could be really exciting and something that could potentially be covered by a silicone sheath. But I'd be very happy to connect with you one-on-one to discuss that more in terms of what the needs are there. Beyond that, I think that for people for areas where the cosmesis isn't quite as rigorous, where we don't need to have it look just like a residual limb, where we can make like an Iron Man hand or something, I think that the devices that are currently out there, the the feedback that we get, I think, is pretty consistently high for the devices that are currently on the hub. So, yeah.
I really like the kinetic hand. It's great. I'd love to do some sort of evolution from it, add to it. I think John's right. That would be
Patrick,
would be
pay attention not just to the design. If you haven't already seen it, look at the documentation for the kinetic hand because it is exceptionally well done. And that's something else that you'd want to carry forward if you can. I think that's one of the best things about that design.
brilliant. I'd love to get in touch with them as well. I can
Yeah, there is contact info in there. I will say it seems like it's a little bit difficult to get responses. I think they're pretty busy, but you can certainly try. It's under what's the address, John? Freehands 3D, is that
I
.org?
think
Let me
maybe
look
it's
if that's-
free 3D hands, but I can find that contact.
brilliant.
But he is, it can be hard to get a response from him. I have one other suggestion to mention.
You're
so
right.
Adam
It's free3dhands.org.
Adam and I both appointed you towards Ugani, and Adam has the closer relationship with that person. So, Adam, I would ask you to connect Patrick with Mr. Ugani, whose name I've forgotten.
Florian.
But I wanted to observe that in Haiti and in other low-tech environments, amputations are more likely to be above the elbow. And so another project to consider would be just a cosmetic arm, maybe with a gripper hand or something, but something that would address the cosmetic need. That's not something we have in our wheelhouse right now. And it might be something that Ugani would say, yes, there is a need for that in Africa. You'd want to check with them, but that's my thought.
Well, yeah, and even if it's below elbow, if it's transradial, I think that that still requires the a pretty large apparatus to manage a full hand with one of the e-NABLE devices. Having something that has a lower profile where we can establish some kind of universal or near universal socket for folks that has a hand that doesn't draw a lot of attention. Those are really the big bullet points for what they need, just because partial hand amputations are generally less common, or at least less common for those seeking a device. So, yeah. But we've got about 10 minutes left. I want to run through. We've got 3 items that I'd like to cover. The last one being a really interesting one that I missed entirely from John. Apparently, we've got a number of FlashForge printers that were up for grabs. John, have all of those been claimed?
No, and in fact, Ian has now clarified that he's looking ideally for an educational institution in his neighborhood, roughly Waltham or thereabouts, who would like all 6. So it's just not clear right now.
Narrower then.
And I'm not sure how set he is on that.
Gotcha. I've got 2 prosthetists, one in Kenya, one in South Africa, who'd love to get their hands on a printer, who don't have the access, the supply access right now. But yeah, that's if we can get clarity on where those could be shipped, that would be really interesting. Okay, well, let us know at the next meeting, John, if we can get any additional clarity there. So on my agenda, I've just got a couple of items that I want to cover really quickly. One, the Wildmont contract renewal, and 2, the DDORA report. Let's hit that second one first. Sarah, thank you very much for sending that edit out this morning. I'm going to try to get time on Evan's calendar early next week to get some of those numbers filled in so that we can submit that to John as quickly as possible for his final review and submission to DDORA. Just for those on the call who are unfamiliar, DDORA is an organization that has donated quite a bit of money to us in the past. We'd like to make sure that we provide them with this annual summary of our activity for the past year as soon as possible. The deadline was technically this past month, but we've been pretty consistently late, I think, with submitting this report. So nothing out of the ordinary, but still, I'd like to get it over to them as quickly as we can. Any comments or questions there? Okay, John, we'll get some time together as soon as we can get this to a more or less finalized state. I'm going to be relying on Evan for a couple of things there. Last thing, John, believe we sent possible language to be submitted to Lumio for the Wildmont renewal. Just as a reminder, this is
No,
on
I have done that. It's been up in Lumio for a few days.
Oh, I didn't get a notification.
I conclude that I neglected to put a post in the hub, but
Gotcha.
check it. You'll see that it's there, and you'll see that in a day or two, the 1 week discussion period, there's been a little discussion, it's been supportive, will have expired, and so we'll put it to a vote. But it should be marketed.
Great. Okay, that's great. I apologize. I didn't get an email notification for this one, and I didn't miss it entirely. Well, great. Thank you for doing that.
Jeremy or Sarah, did you get a Lumio notification that it was up?
I don't believe so. Might not have hit that checkbox.
Okay, I'll get back to that, or any of us can get back to it, and
no problem.
Make sure that it fans out to all of the enrolled Lumio people, as well as put a post in the hub. That's on me. I'll do it.
Thanks, John. That's great. It looks like 51 people have seen it. So at the very least, people are generally aware. So that's good. Okay, well, excellent. That's it on my end.
Could I just talk about the calendar quickly?
Of course.
So I published the updated Google Doc for November into the hub. And one thing to note, we're having our education and new member meeting on Thursday, 16th this month at 1 p.m. Eastern. And Rick is going to come and talk about what he's been working on. So it would be really wonderful if you could all mark your calendars and come to that.
That's Rick Williams. Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh,
that's
nice.
Great.
Yeah, so that will be Thursday, November 16th at 1 p.m.
I saw he posted something on LinkedIn a little while ago with some work that he's doing. Looks like he's still doing some interesting stuff. That would be cool to see.
And then the other thing, I haven't sent out the newsletter yet. As I was updating the hub calendar, I saw that there was a conference and it was listed as being like an education conference on the 21st. I checked out the website. It looks like there might be something on the 18th this year, but I wondered if that was something that just carried over from last year. And if anyone is participating in that this year, should I put a note in the newsletter or should I remove it from the hub calendar? It's listed on the 21st.
I'm sorry, I can't offer any insight there. I'm not sure.
John or Jeremy? Any idea if I should delete it or make a note of it?
I'm sorry, I was a little distracted by something there. Can you clarify?
My suggestion, Sarah, is that you click the link, drill down, see if you think it's something to be recommended to people, and make that decision. I don't know anything about it. I suspect it's left over.
I think it was left over from last year. It looks like an education and technology conference. that last year an e-NABLE member was, I think, was presenting at. If we don't have an e-NABLE member presenting there this year, I don't see a reason to advertise it. But
I think that's fair. What is the name of the conference, Sarah?
you have to look on it's on the calendar.
Oh, okay.
I don't have it up right now. It's on the calendar on the 21st of November.
Looks like NY Skate, New York State Association for Technologies in Education. Apparently Lindsay Wells was presenting something there. That was oh, this is from 2020. This is old. I think we can safely remove this. I don't think that this is
Okay. Okay, I'll remove that then, and just remember Rick is on Thursday the 16th at 1 p.m. So
okie doke.
yeah.
Thanks, Sarah.
All right.
Any other questions or comments before we close the call? Alrighty. Well, thank you all so much for your time. We'll meet again. Oh, one last thing before I almost forgot. As long as we're on the subject of the calendar, we currently have a meeting scheduled on, I think it was in the month of December, actually. I think we errantly have a third town hall scheduled on December 29th that we will need to have removed. And I don't think I have permissions to actually edit the calendar right now. Since we're
I only edit the calendar each month, so right now it's only edited for November. I haven't gotten to December yet.
Gotcha. Oh, yep, right you are, because it looks like we have we got a couple of errant meetings, so no problem. Just notice it when I was walking through the rest of my year. Okay, well, thank you, everyone. We will meet again in 2 weeks.
Bye all.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.